Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Mrs. Witt, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates.
Present.
Mrs. Copeland-Dansby.
Present.
Mrs. Hoffman. Mr. Coons. Mr. Manera.
Present.
Mr. Nelms.
Present.
President Bolton.
Present. Thank you very much. Hayes Porter was scheduled for tonight's presentation, but due to the schools being closed today, we will once again reschedule our friends and neighbors from Hayes Porter for a future date as well. At this time, we will begin with old business, and I need a motion to approve the minutes from the organizational meeting January 6th, 2014, special meeting January 13th, 2014, and regular meeting January 13th, 2014.
Second.
All right. Mr. Nelms moves and Mrs. Bates has seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved as presented. Let's see. Mr. Manera, in the absence of the committee chair, Coons, would you please present the Partnership and Public Engagement Committee report?
Sounds good. All right. Let's see. We met as a committee. I don't know if I have that here. Let's see. Sorry about that.
Okay, take your time.
Thought we had that. Here we go.
January 15th.
January 15th, and we discussed an alcoholic waiver at Walnut Hills. We also discussed community board meetings. This would be meetings that would be out in the community to get some community feedback. We haven't really finalized what that would look like, but we are in the process of trying to engage more with the community and getting some community feedback. And I think that's all we covered on that thing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And now, does any board member have any questions for the committee of the whole? Yes.
Don't those waivers usually come through policy?
Can we check on it?
Well, the last waiver we have, as far as I understand, was the one at CPA. And that one, I believe, came through the PPE committee. But I might be wrong on how it's come in the past, but I know the last one did come through PPE.
Part of the action from that conversation, our public affairs director is actually contacting the school to have the school request the waiver for this particular activity. I don't think we had enough information that day. So I don't think it is that it just hasn't gotten to policy quite yet.
Okay. I'm not sure. We'll have to check. We do know that the last one did, I believe, come through PPE. And Ms. Davis, can you verify that they go through PPE? And
that is correct. They have been going through PPE, but if that's something you would like to start going to talk about that as relates to policy.
Because
the
there's
very
been
first
an
one did.
increased frequency in this request, so.
perhaps we can look at that as an assignment that would be good.
It's a good idea.
And, you know, I don't mind doing this. It's just that if it's not a one-time request, that we may want to look at the policy a little further.
Well, I do know that there's some note about considering such a request on a case-by-case basis. And I don't know how that would affect the future requests.
That is correct. We talked about that on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
Yes.
Hearing them on a case-by-case basis.
And ultimately, once the case is heard through PPE, it does come to the full board for approval. So the decision is not made at the committee.
So are you saying that the timeline retroactive timeline would probably be for it to come back to you if the waiver is requested from Walnut Hills.
I think I can
back to
update
the
on that
PPE.
based upon what staff mentioned to me today, that the needed things that had to happen have now happened, and it will be going ultimately to the board, because I think the committee vote was predicated on those things being done. They've been achieved, and so it looks like we'll probably be voting on that waiver on next Wednesday, because having spoken also with the superintendent about the need for possibly changing the committee of the whole into the special public meeting next Wednesday, that's probably where we would be voting. And indeed, at this time, if the treasurer has any items that need to be moved ahead or forward, it's very likely that next committee of the whole, next Wednesday, will be a special board meeting where we're able to vote. And the superintendent will be catching us up on what we would be voting on besides this waiver next Wednesday.
And
Mr.
President
Manera?
Bolton, also to Ms. Bates' concern, which I think is a very good concern, is it is a case by case. And once we can request what has been requested in the past, because that's all we're going by, if the board feels and the policy committee feels that that's something we can address, we can definitely bring that up.
Perhaps we can put that in the assignment piece as we get there if we want to refer it somewhere. And no other questions about the committee of the whole or any questions about that? All right. We need a voice vote to accept the committee's reports as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. New business for this evening will begin, as always, with Mr. Nelms, and kudos.
And I will let board members Bates and Mr. Manera present their kudos first.
You want to go first? If I can find it.
I'll go first. I have mine right here. I have kudos to Diana Dahl, an instructional assistant for Sands Montessori, who teaches dyslexic students. She is the recipient of the 2013 Robert G. and Eleanor T. Hall Memorial Scholarships, sponsored by EPS Literacy and Intervention. The scholarships reward exemplary educators for their innovative instructional strategies that they use to help their dyslexic students achieve at the highest levels. Ms. Dahl received her award at the International Dyslexia Association's 64th Annual Conference that was held in New Orleans.
Very well. And we also have kudos to Leah Carter, a junior at the School of Creative and Performing Arts, was selected to participate in the Ohio Music Education Association All-State Orchestra, which will perform at the OMEA State Conference in Columbus in February of this year. Leah is one of only 3 Ohio high school students selected for the clarinet section. Selection to the orchestra is by competitive audition. She is a member of SCPA Symphonic Winds and the SCPA Symphony Orchestra, so kudos to her.
Thank you. Did that take care of the kudos, Mr. Nelms? Thank you. Mrs. Bates, would you please present the retirements?
Yes, we have 3 staff members who are retiring, and they are all civil service personnel. Stephen Lowe, Jeffrey Mauk, and Barbara Swanson, and we wish them well and thank them for their service to our children.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Bates. At this time, we usually hear the public, and perhaps because of the weather, or because everybody's doing such a great job, we don't have anybody that wants to speak to us. And Mr. Berry is giving us the thumbs up, so we'll move right ahead. And President Sellers is not speaking tonight. Okay. Then we'll move on to resolutions, and this one is to be voted. And Mrs. Bates, would you please, as our senior member, and a person that has great knowledge about this and has been preaching this for quite some time, would you please present this resolution for discussion and vote?
Yes, thank you. I have a resolution expressing continued support for collaboration between the Cincinnati Board of Education and the Cincinnati City Council. Expressing the support of the Cincinnati Board of Education for renewing the board's commitment to a strong collaborative relationship between the Cincinnati Board of Education and Cincinnati City Council, and a deepening district-city partnership so as to enhance educational outcomes, improve quality of life, and produce economic vitality in Cincinnati. And whereas in 2004, the Cincinnati Board of Education and the Cincinnati City Council expressed a joint commitment to a strategy of using new and renovated school facilities as community learning centers, turning schools into hubs for healthcare, after-school programming, adult education, and recreational and cultural opportunities to support students, families, and the surrounding community. And whereas in 2004, the Cincinnati Board of Education and the Cincinnati City Council passed a resolution to establish a framework for a working dialogue to collaborate on the historic $1 billion facilities master plan to rebuild and renovate facilities across the entire school district. Whereas the implementation of the $1 billion facilities master plan has now been successfully completed. Whereas an exemplary partnership has been developed between the district and city health department, realizing double-digit percentage increases in immunization rates and health screenings and the formation of school-based health centers. And whereas the district has increased its academic performance index by more than 30 points and is recognized as the state of Ohio's highest achieving urban district. Whereas the district has a national reputation for the most successful community learning center initiative in the country. And whereas the district has partnered with the city in key aspects of the facilities master plan and community learning center initiative, including collaboration on safe walking routes to school, the deployment of the city health department resources inside of schools, the pairing of city police officers with schools, and strategic land swaps. And whereas the momentum of the district has been matched by the momentum of Cincinnati, with the past decade bringing about the revitalization of the urban core, population stabilization for the first time in 50 years, strategic investment in neighborhoods, and job creation driven by an expanding entrepreneurial ecosystem. Now, therefore be it resolved by the Cincinnati Board of Education, State of Ohio, Section 1, that the board hereby formally expresses its support for an ongoing partnership with the City of Cincinnati Council, including the establishment of a joint working group consisting of board members and council members to meet at least monthly, have joint briefings on mutual interests. Section 2, that the joint working group will, through open meetings and expressed measurable goals, recommend shared policy goals to be adopted by both bodies and implemented in a coordinated manner by the district and city administrations. Section 3, that such policy goals will be developed respectively by the city and district through meaningful community engagement and advocacy. Section 4, that both council and board staff, as well as district and city administrations, will provide ongoing internal communication through both bodies' work and report back formally at least quarterly. Section 5, that areas of focus for the joint working group shall include, but be not limited to, marketing, mobility, population growth, youth employment and career training, workforce development, safe and livable neighborhoods, wellness, recreation, land use, housing, blight, and access to technology, access to quality and early childhood education, with the intent of making Cincinnati an even more globally competitive city with a world-class school district for all students. Section 6, that the district and the city shall aspire to efficiencies produced by the sharing of facilities and services. Section 7, that this resolution be spread upon the official minutes of the Cincinnati Board of Education, and that a copy be sent to the Honorable John Cranley, Mayor of the City of Cincinnati, at 801 Plum Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45202. I present this resolution as printed for adoption.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? We have a second from Ms. Copeland Dansby. Okay. May I just make one correction, and maybe I think it's correct on Section 5. There may or may not need to be an and of access to quality early childhood education. Access to quality early childhood education. Just strike the and. Any other points, corrections, additions, comments? Certainly, it's worthy of comment, and again, thanks everyone for their work, and thank the city council members too for their work, because As I understand it, they passed a similar resolution last week. So we're on the move. Vice President Nelms.
First of all, thank you. It's a lot of collaboration, a lot of progress. But my question would be, what would be next in terms of us actually putting some meat in action to this resolution from both sides?
I think the next step is to notify the city that we are in the process of passing this.
Okay.
And upon passage, then I think it would be that we would find a mutual date sometime in February to say, this is where we're going to start to convene, how we're, convene a joint work group.
Okay.
And that may be the permanent group, or it may be an ad hoc kind of group, but I think that's what'll happen. We'll acknowledge to them that we've passed it, and then we'll choose a mutually successful date that we can begin our work.
And will we choose mutually concerned items or issues moving forward that impact both the city and our district in terms of our education, which we're primarily called?
I think both groups, this is my thoughts, but I think both groups might prioritize some things that may be at the head of the list. And then we find out what we can start to do and what will require action earliest and discussion earliest.
Okay.
Is that, Mr. Manera?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that, it was actually an honor and a privilege to be out in the campaign trail with a lot of the city council men and women who are sitting right now currently. And it was exciting to see how the public responded when we were at community forums. I would challenge ourselves, but also challenge our citizens and our families of Cincinnati Public School to come out to these public meetings and to come out and voice exactly the same thing we get a chance to hear here at the board to these collaborative meetings. I think we can do a good job representing those who have elected us, but to hear it from them will be very important through this process. So as your question, Mr. Nelms, on what's the next process is, I think it challenged all of us to step it up a little bit and come and speak about the things that we care for. I know here at the board we'll be willing to listen and to push forward for those things that are specifically important for our students.
Thank you. Mrs. Dansby?
Yes, President Bolton. I am especially excited about the opportunity for the community collaboration related to joint forces that are outlined here. I think we're all as a community very excited about opportunities to collaborate on youth employment and career development for our students. And so as we move forward, I'm very excited about the work and reporting back, of course, to the community as to what we're able to accomplish.
Great.
Very, very good work.
Thank you. I think we're all very pleased about this. I think we're ready to have a roll call.
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby.
Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
President Bolton.
Aye. Superintendent Ronan, do you have a report for us?
Yes, President Bolton. Today, Cincinnati Public Schools used our 5th calamity day, which is allowed in the state of Ohio, due to the 40-mile-an-hour winds that were present when we were on the phone at 4:30 this morning, and the temperatures were dropping. Tomorrow, we are going to use day 6, which will put us 1 day over the allowable days due to the wind chill from the Arctic vortex that is engulfing most of the country. And I do want to remind everyone, we do err on the side of student safety. And although a lot of our youngsters do get dropped off in automobiles, we still have 6,000 children who have to walk a mile to school, and about 15,000 who are standing at bus stops at 6:30 in the morning, both Yellow and Metro, hoping the bus will be on time. And considering you can get frostbite in 5 to 10 minutes at these extreme temperatures, we have canceled school today and tomorrow. Now, and since we have exceeded the number of allowable calamity days, we have consulted with the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers, and we do have a February 10th PD day coming, which we could make an instructional day for youngsters since they've already had so many days off. In addition, since we anticipate, that will just cover tomorrow's day, and we anticipate probably several more days this season. We are requesting a board resolution to allow us to have blizzard bags, which basically means we send home work or have online lessons for our youngsters. And with a board resolution, CFT sign-off, and ODE approval, you are allowed to have 3 additional days. In addition, Governor Kasich did mention that he was working with the legislature possibly to see if they could do a one-time exemption this year, but that could take a month or 2 or 3 months to materialize. So my request would be at our next board meeting or at the next committee of a whole meeting, we could process that resolution so we could fill out all the paperwork, send it to ODE, because there will be a turnaround time to see if they will allow us to do that to make up any additional days that most probably will occur before the season is over.
Thank you. Any questions of the superintendent regarding that report before we move on? So it would appear that the earlier we do it, the better, just because of the turnaround time from ODE and whatever. So I think it is looking very likely that the next Wednesday is a special public meeting and not a committee of the whole, although we'll do work of the committee of the whole, but also have that opportunity as a special call meeting. That way we'll be able to vote as a body too. And that resolution will be there. Thank you very much. And I know that there's not too many things that are harder to try to decide than when you get your team together at 4 or so in the morning or earlier to have to decide to call. But certainly you're right. We appreciate you choosing safety over even instruction.
Exactly. A 6 or 7-year-old in a snowbank with wind chills, I mean, we could have an unfortunate result.
And if the February thing works out, that would be great, because I know people feel very strongly about missing instructional times pre the test times, if you will, too. That's a pressure. So,
I have
go ahead.
a question or a comment. I wanted to make sure that the word was getting out that alerts are being put up on our website regarding the closures. And also with updates about the kinds of things that were discussed tonight, such as the possibility of blizzard bags, of, you know, that we may be having an additional day added, just those kinds of things. As soon as they are approved, that they're up on the website, so people are kept
That's an
up
excellent
to date.
idea. We'll make sure our public affairs official, Janet Walsh, is here. We will get that on the website. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Superintendent Ronan, if there could be a way to explore putting a message in Spanish as well, I would advocate for that, just because I personally, with the families I work with, they call, and some of them are trying the website. So if we can just try to explore that as we continue to promote our advocacy for our ELL population.
We will get that translated into Spanish, and thank you for your assistance.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the revised recommendations of the superintendent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any questions, comments, issues to be presented to the superintendent regarding her recommendations? Roll call.
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby.
Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
President Bolton.
Aye. Do I have a motion to approve the revised report of the treasurer?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Oh, second. Second, thank you.
I don't have the printed copy, but on the revised copy in our, up on SharePoint, the name of the vendor on number 17 isn't present. So can you let us know the name of the vendor that is going to be receiving this contract?
On our printer one, we have it. It's-
Yeah, but because I
Is that
don't get the printed
HP Financial
ones by
Services?
request, I don't have it.
Hewlett Packard? Hewlett Packard, HP Financial
Hewlett
Services?
Packard, okay.
Any other questions, comments, issues regarding the treasurer's report? Roll call.
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby.
Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms. President Bolton.
Aye. Tonight's inquiries and updates, just refer to one. We already dealt with a couple, which is the possibility, and now for sure, having the special public meeting on next Wednesday. We also would like to announce that the board will have another retreat on February 7th? February 7th, 4:30 to 8:30, for the purpose of discussing goals and vision and mission as we are able to move forward and have an impact regarding the budget process and other items of concern to the district. And we also have heard from, and maybe Mr. Nelms can talk briefly about that, the Facet Committee has been working on the revision of the local school decision-making committee, LSDMC policy review. And you heard a report tonight, and maybe you could update the rest of the board and the public.
Well, the plans moving forward, they've done a lot of intensive work around making sure that the policy is in place and carry enough, I guess you could say, bite of information before moving on to developing policies, procedures, and process. And I was looking for my notes and you caught me off guard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And so the plan is to have a timeline for reconvening that particular subcommittee, making some further decisions, and then presenting it to the PPE committee. And the PPE committee would then bring it to the policy committee for voting, or the committee of the whole too. Yeah, that's the process. PPE, committee of the whole, and then bring it to the the board, so that the board can vote on it through resolution.
Thank you very much. Any other inquiries or updates that need to be dealt with or mentioned for, okay, great. Assignments? Does anyone want to follow up on that
Yeah,
assignment?
on the policy, or on the,
Alcohol waiver?
yes, the alcohol waiver, to find out how many we've had since we've been granting alcohol waivers, and finding out what kind of waivers they were, so we can consider adjusting the policy.
Okay.
And is that for the administration?
That's for, the administration will do that work and bring it to policy committee.
Thank you. Any other assignments? Meeting's adjourned.